Hey everybody, welcome back to Bacon's Bass Place. I'm Aaron Bacon, and today I'm going to be showing you 9 tips that are going to get you going in the right direction towards developing the perfect slap stroke with your thumb when you're playing slap bass. Stick around, guys. So a couple things before we get going, guys. If you're new to my channel, I want to get you to hit that subscribe button because we're putting out new bass-related videos every Friday, so you can come back and you know when to get it on Fridays. It's going to be a good thing. Also, I'm not trying to say that I have the perfect slap stroke here. I'm just saying that for me, this works really well. For me, this is totally suited to the way that I play and the way that I've developed this according to what I like to do. So I'm going to show you what I've come up with, and I'm going to give you these 9 tips that are going to get you guys going towards what works perfectly for me when I'm slap bassing. Okay guys, let's get right into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the angle at which your thumb and or your hand and or your wrist is actually contacting the string at, alright? Now, I've talked about this in a previous video, but I'm just going to do it again because this is what this one is all about. You don't want, like when I first learned, you make a fist and you stick out your thumb. That's how you do slap bass, right? And it works pretty good when you're doing overhand style. Right? But I tend to play underhand style. So there's a bit of a difference between the way that you're going to hold your thumb, okay? So it's not going to be straight out like this. You're going to want to do one of 2 things. One, you're either going to want to move your thumb in like that, and you should probably just do that if you do either one of these 2 things. You just don't have your thumb in the line with the rest of your fingers, with these knuckles. You don't want it parallel. You want it to be in front of these knuckles here, right? Because otherwise these knuckles are going to stop it from actually going through the string. Okay, so you want to stick your thumb out at what, like a 20-30 degree angle or something, right? The other thing is actually, like, you can turn your wrist a little bit. I don't know how well you guys can see what I'm doing here, but you don't want to be totally parallel to the string, right? So you stick your thumb in, or you can keep it like that and like rotate your whole hand to point in a little bit more. That's going to work for you as well, especially if you're just doing this. So that's the one thing that I'm going to get you to start with, is the angle. You don't want it to be parallel to the strings, okay? You have to be sticking out so you can actually get into the strings without the rest of your hand interfering. The next thing we're going to talk about is the contact point of your thumb that hits the string, okay? There's kind of 2 ways to do it, but only one of them really works for double thumping, alright? Okay, so the one that doesn't work for double thumping, we'll start with that. And that's where you're hitting it close to the knuckle, to the big round part of your thumb, alright? That works for overhand and underhand slap bass playing. It works just fine, makes a big good target. It's a little easy to just wail on it, to thump hard with that, because it's a big strong part of your thumb, right? And it's not bad, it works. But it's not the way that I like to do it. The way that I like to do it is with the top corner, like the top outside corner of my thumbnail, A couple videos ago I had a video where I put a line on my thumb. If you go back to that one, you'll see it. I think it's when I'm breaking down all of the strokes of slap bass. This is kind of where we went over this stuff before, and I'll link that below, but now we're just getting a little bit more detail with just the thumb stroke, So again, I'm gonna have it at like that kind of an angle on my thumb, right? Again, I don't want my finger to be parallel to the string. Same thing we were talking about earlier. So that's the thing that you can get with both of them. When you stick your thumb out like this, see how it's not the side of my knuckle anymore. Now it's going to be the corner of my nail here. The corner of my whole thumb is going to be what actually contacts the string. Again, if your thumb is parallel to the string, this is going to be really hard to get that upstroke, okay? You want to get the upstroke, you have to use the corner of your thumb. It's not as much in the nail as you think it might be. Like, the nail is involved for sure, but you're not like picking it with the nail. You're still using the flesh of your thumb to do the work. You know, your thumbnail is just in the way. But it does help a little bit to grip the upstroke. So we're going to do another video at some point about just the upstroke, because a lot of people struggle with that. Alright, so if you adjust the angle, it will also automatically sort of adjust the contact point, okay? So don't do this, do this, or this, you know, one of the two. I tend to do a bit of both, but I stick out my thumb more than I do the wrist turning, okay? The third tip I'm going to give you is the actual combination of motions that I use to produce the motion that I'm doing, alright? So what I'm doing is I'm combining this up and down motion, I'm combining this out and in motion, and I'm combining a little bit of the side motion of the wrist, you know? I'm trying not to do very much twisting, but when you combine those three motions, it sort of gives you like a scooping twist. But it's not just a twisting, okay? It's actually little intentional twisting. There's very little intentional twisting there, okay? I'm going up and down, and then I'm doing also a little bit of out and in. So it's giving me this like 40 degree angle, right? And then I'm doing a little bit of this rocking motion with my wrist, which gives me just a little bit of hook. And then when I combine that with the, you know, the up and down and the out and in, which gives me that hybrid angle at the 40 degrees, or whatever angle that would be, combine that with a bit of the up torque, and it gives me this kind of scoot, this whoosh, whoosh, this kind of, that motion, right? This whoosh, whoosh. And maybe it is just a twist. Maybe I'm just overcomplicating something that's basically just twisting, you know? But it's a much more subtle and complicated motion than just twisting your wrist, okay? It's like this, it's more 3D. It's not something that's just happening on a side plane like this. It's a more detailed motion, okay? So combining up and down, out and in, and rocking with the wrist sort of produces a type of twist, but it's a more subtly detailed twist, okay? So that's the third tip, is that motion. Fourth tip is that motion gets its strength from your arm and your shoulder, okay? Not from your hand and your thumb. You're not actually like pushing with your thumb. Maybe there's a little bit of this just to resist the string to keep it stiff, but you're not actually pushing. Like any thumb motion, I think, just helps with fluidity and helps with like timing and accuracy, but not with strength, okay? The strength comes from like your arm, your shoulder, all up here, all right? That's why when you see Louis Johnson and Larry Graham, they're using a lot more outward motion than I do when I'm doing, okay? My stuff's all designed for like economy, so I'm just kind of keeping everything really tight, but those guys are just, you know, they were all over the place. They were just beating the crap out of their basses. It was in the best way possible. It was really amazing. So you can't really get that without using the strength from your arm. It doesn't come from like hand or wrist strength, alright? It comes from the arm. There's so much more strength available in your arm. Okay guys, tip number 5. This is kind of a basic one. If you've been playing, you should know this. Like if you've been playing professionally and out playing in bands or you know, orchestras or whatever your thing is, you want to get ready before you play, okay? Set up your stroke before you're going. Like you want to have your first note ready. You want to know what string you're going to be aiming at. You want to know what stroke you're going to be using, and you want to be ready for it, okay? So I'm going to put my thumb like in the position that it would be after I've done a stroke, okay? And I'm going to look at where it is there, and I'll be like, that's where I want it to be after my first note, alright? And I'm just going to like reverse engineer the trail that my thumb followed, and I'm just going to start. So when I'm right about to start, I'm here. You know, I'm not like, oh, like when's that first note gonna happen? Oh, there, I missed it already. No, like I'm ready for it, okay? So that's the thing here, is like you set up your strokes before you do them. You get ready for it. That segues really nice into our next tip, is that you want to follow through after you do the stroke as well, okay? Your thumb, when you do a stroke, if you don't follow through, it's you know, it kind of doesn't work too well, because you're not making sure that you get your thumb out of the way of that string so it can ring for a while, okay? Like when I'm doing that, my thumb here is pushing on this string below it so that it's clear away from that. Even when I'm doing this. Like when I stop that, you know, my thumb has to make sure that it goes far enough away from that. Same with the pops and stuff, you know, like I don't want to, the pops is a little different because follow-throughs with all these motions are really small motions, you know, but if you don't do them, if you don't just naturally do them, they kind of, they mute your notes and they make it really, really, like they emphasize the staccato problem that happens with slap bass a lot, and you kind of, that's what you want to avoid if you're going to be playing slap bass a lot, is you want to make sure that you have full control over your notes. Right, and like the pop is, again, most of the follow through for most of these strokes are to just get your hand out of the way. Okay guys, so make sure you're following through. Make sure you're giving all of your notes room to breathe after you strike them, okay? Now here's the next one, number 7. Now this one is huge. This for me is like the absolute crux of being able to play slap bass in any context and any application and making it good and not just like gross slapping when it's not called for, okay? And what the trick is you have to work on your dynamics, alright? Develop your dynamics across the full spectrum of dynamics. Most bass players just have loud and louder when they're trying to play slap bass, you know? Same with speeds, they just have fast and faster. Okay, but you want to be able to like Alright, so if you, I'm doing some palm muting there is one way that I really like, and I kind of consider this still in slap bass techniques, is to do the palm muting a little bit, right? Because you can kind of do a slap and land on a palm mute. But that's still to do a louder palm mute. You know, you can do, you want to be able to do quiet unpalm muted too, and quiet palm muted and loud palm muted, you know? Or alright, so dynamics I think are so crucial. I like to sort of conceptually borrow techniques from piano dynamics, and I'm no piano player like at all, so I don't really know piano dynamics, okay, but I'm pretty sure that one way that they do it is like with their fingers only to get like low, quiet dynamics, and then with the whole hand and arm to get louder, heavier dynamics, you know, and you can take the same kind of approach with your slap bass, like that's for heavy, right? Like when I'm using my arm and wailing on it like that, okay, that's a good way to do loud, but quietly, you know, palm mute it. So I can't move my arm at all, okay? It's all just small finger motion. Okay? Practice stuff like that. It's really awesome. Another really awesome thing about when you bring your dynamics down, okay, when you make it quieter, is it gives you a lot more control, alright? You can use your ears and you can listen to the mix in the room, in your in-ears, in the venue, in the basement, wherever you're playing. You can, when you're playing more quietly, you can adapt so much more tastefully to the mix in the room, and you can play just under the beat, you can play wherever you want, and you can get a lot more contrast, okay, if you're playing quietly. Alright, Alright, so if you're just playing everything loud, you can't get that dynamics. You don't have the control over being able to mix yourself into the mix of the room, the volume with all the other instruments properly just through your playing. You know, you don't have the ability to create that contrast, okay? So dynamics, super important in slap bass, alright? The next tip that I'm going to be giving you is to not get locked into anything, okay? Slap bass can be super restricting, okay? It's super easy to get stuck into what I call the rhythmic frame lock, a slap bass. And I mean, it happens all over the place. And then you start doing stuff like that and it gets you a little bit more out of it, okay? So what you gotta do is dig at the things that are hard for you. If you find a pattern that's hard, like, say, for example, you've just gotten the hang of doing this. Okay, that's just triplets on one string slapping. Pop, slap, up, thumb, all on one string. Say you've just got the hang of doing that all on one string, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now you're gonna start doing your scales with it, okay? Now you're going to start doing your scales with it. Next, this is the hard part. See, you're going to just want to dig. The harder this gets, like, the more time you want to spend on it. And this is going to open up those new areas so that you don't get stuck in it. And this is also, like, technique stuff that helps you to overcome every time that you come across this in your playing. You're not just solving it for when you're trying to do scales, okay? It solves it for every time you have to do something like that same technique in any of your playing. Now it's just in your technique repertoire, you know? So one really good thing that just helps opening it up, practice those scales, slapping them one note at a time. Just did 3 notes at a time before that. Now we're just going to do one note. Right? So that kind of stuff, it's gonna help you find all of those areas that you're locked into, okay? It's gonna isolate every time you stumble on something, and when you stumble there, that's when you're gonna stop and be like, that's the thing that I need to master, okay? Like one of my favorite strokes that we get to do is this popping on one string with one finger and then popping on the next string with your next finger. So like, okay? And my last tip, guys, and you should, again, be doing this all the time, is use your ears, okay? You have to be listening. I know it takes a lot of concentration to start doing stuff. You know, that's why it's a really good exercise to try and talk while you're playing. Because that means you have that stuff kind of internalized, at least. Right? You have to be able to know it so well that you're freed up in your mind to do that without the attention that it once took to do that, so that you can take the conscious attention to other areas, okay? Like listening with your ears, okay? This takes a conscious effort from you, aside from when you're playing, to actually listen to the drummer, listen to the guitar player, listen to like the horns or the violin or whatever you're playing with. You have to be able to separate a bit of your brain for listening, okay? Because if you've missed a part, or if you're playing too loud, which is like so common with slap bass, people just are gross with it, you know, and they do that like in a ballad, and they're just like, oh my god, did that make you fall in love with me? It's like, no, that made me want to puke, okay? So if you're not listening, you're never gonna get this, alright? You have to use your ears. You have to use your ears, and you have to know what's good taste and what's good context. If you're having trouble listening, if you don't hear anything, that's probably a good sign. Like if you don't hear anything out of the ordinary and you are listening, that's probably good. Means you're sitting in the mix nicely like you're supposed to if nobody else is telling you anything. But like if your other bandmates or your conductor or somebody starts telling you that you need to tone it down, you know that you got to start listening more, okay? Because you should have been able to pick up on that already. I mean, everybody's different. If it's like your first time with somebody, maybe these guys just don't like it the way that the last guy liked it. That's why it's also important to communicate with your other like bandmates. Ask them, am I too loud? Do you think my tone sucks? Do you think I'm playing too aggressively? Like, try and get the opinion and put your ego aside when they actually say like, oh yeah, maybe don't do that there, and then just be like, oh, I'm gonna get butthurt about it, okay? So that's been 9 tips that I think are gonna help you guys take steps towards developing the perfect slap stroke when you're playing your slap bass, okay? Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Come back every Friday to Bacon's Bass Place because we're putting out new videos, new bass videos. We got gig vlogs, we got gear modification videos, we got podcasts at some point is gonna be coming back. So lots of stuff sticking around. We're doing it every Friday right now, okay? Also, if you're interested, my band Dizzy Mystics has our new album out. It's called Wanderlost. It's really exciting. It's like psychedelic, progressive hard rock, we kind of call it. And yeah, that's out now on Bandcamp. I'll have the link below, so if you want to check that out, if you want to see some of what I actually play live these days, that's you know, my passion project, not, you know, like a charity metal gig or something, or a fundraiser, because I like to do those, but this is my main band here, so it's what I actually like to play on stage live, and it's where I got to adapt a lot of the slap bass techniques that I'm using. I had to use on that album to adapt the bass lines that were kind of written for it, because it's our first album, and I was joined on afterwards to play the bass because it was written without a band. It was just written by one guy, our singer Kyle, who did everything and like basically just helped us bypass the first 5 years of being in a band, because there was an awesome album ready to go before I even joined. So I just had to learn these parts. Okay, so that's kind of a little, that's not from anything, but it's kind of a scale from one of the songs that I like to noodle with. Sometimes a song called Rester has a lot that's a really good example of like something, it's a slow song, like that is a ballad, and I'm slapping like 90% of it. Like the main verse riff is like, alright, and I consider that to be slap bass. I'm using slap technique, it's just soft, you know? You have to be able to do it softly. Okay, so if you want to see some of that, you want to get familiar with those songs, go check out the link down below, Bandcamp. You can get Wanderlost now on Bandcamp. Did I mention it was on Bandcamp already? I think it's actually on Bandcamp. Bandcamp, okay. Also, guys, I'm doing private online bass lessons, so if you want to take one-on-one lessons from me developing any of these things or any other things, if you're new, if you've been playing for years, if you're just starting, whatever, go to the About section on my channel. You'll see my email address there, and you can email me for bass lesson inquiries. If you're in Winnipeg, we'll just get together and do it. But if you're not in my hometown of Winnipeg, then we'll do it online. We can do Skype, we can do WhatsApp, we can do Facebook, we can do anything that your heart desires. So I'm Aaron Bacon again. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next week.